Sponsored by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
From Florida to the White House, students and parents pleaded that something be done to end gun violence. I'm Hannah Doba with the latest ahead.
And closer to home, after the Florida high school shootings, threats are made at a handful of Montana schools. Where that's happening and how officials are reacting, also coming up.
Good morning. It is 6:30 on your Thursday. Exactly 1 week after that deadly high school shooting in Florida, students who survived the attack spent the day demanding action on gun control.
A town hall overnight got especially uncomfortable for at least one prominent senator. CBS's Hannah Doba has more.
From Tallahassee to Washington, D.C., students who survived last week's high school shooting spent the day putting the heat on politicians to take action on gun control.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future?
Florida Senator Marco Rubio would not commit to turning down NRA money at CNN's town hall last night, where students and parents from Stoneman Douglas High School questioned lawmakers. Rubio did, though, say he would support legislation raising the age limit for buying a rifle. He also agreed to rethink his stance on large capacity magazines.
That is something that I believe we can reach a compromise in this country and that I'm willing to reconsider.
Earlier in the day in Washington, President Trump met with students and parents from Douglas High School, Sandy Hook, and Columbine.
How is it that easy to buy this type of weapon? How do we not stop this? After Columbine, after Sandy Hook, I'm sitting with a mother that lost her son. It's still happening.
Mr. Trump spoke of strengthening background checks and possibly arming teachers.
If you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly.
And in Tallahassee, thousands of protesters, many of them teenagers, swarmed Florida's State House, calling for changes to gun laws. Around 100 survivors of last week's shooting were among them. Hannah Doba, CBS News.
Now, Hannah tells us a spokesperson for the National Rifle Association, who also spoke at the town hall, spoke of flaws in the system that allow mentally ill people to buy guns. She also pointed a finger at law enforcement for not doing more to act on red flags raised by the alleged shooter leading up to that attack. So much more to follow on that topic right now, 6:32. Matt steps in to join us, and the cold continues, and
yeah,
the nerves are thinning, and
yeah, it is a sore subject for a lot of people. Talking about the temperatures, we are really stuck in this pattern for the next handful of days. Certainly, good news is we don't have a lot of wind. That's helping things out a bit. Temperature still sitting near zero. Wind chill in Belgrade right now 10 below. We don't have a lot of wind in southwest Montana at this point, but our temperatures are still not going to take off for the afternoon, mainly because we're talking a little extra cloud cover in our skies. You're looking at our camera panning in the mining city this morning. Temperatures into the teens. Snow by the weekend? We'll answer that question coming up in just a few minutes.
Now 6:33 on your Thursday, the Granite County Sheriff's Department is investigating a threat made to students at a Phillipsburg school. The threats were directed towards a group of students and were made by a juvenile under the age of 18. He is being charged with 1 count of felony intimidation and 3 counts of misdemeanor assault. No students were harmed, but Sheriff Scott Dunkerson says all threats will be taken seriously.
Also, Darby School Superintendent has confirmed another social media threat towards his school. Lloyd Reneker says a student brought forward a Snapchat thread they discovered from an anonymous, unidentified account around 10:30 Wednesday morning. He said the school contacted parents and many of them picked up their students. Reneker said the school was not in lockdown, but students were restricted to the main building. Extra law enforcement officers were sent to the school, including sheriff's officers and Darby police officers. School administrators met with the school board last night, that was Wednesday night, and decided that classes will continue in spite of the threats. This follows another social media threat incident made by a student who was suspended and charged with felony intimidation and with assault with a weapon. That happened earlier this week. Also, the Helena School District administrators say they are investigating a Capitol High student over an online video where he displayed a firearm.
But right now, those administrators say they don't believe the video was a direct threat. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian takes a closer look.
Helena Public Schools Superintendent Jack Copps says a male Capitol High student posted a video Tuesday on the social network Snapchat. He says the student showed a handgun and asked questions about gun ownership.
It's a Second Amendment question of if I own a firearm, does that mean that I'm a threat and may kill someone?
Copps says administrators learned about the video later that day and decided to take the student out of the school.
The first and most important thing we do is to contact the student's parents, and remove the student immediately from the school environment. And then we can begin to conduct an investigation.
The district has formed a threat assessment committee to investigate the incident. They will determine whether any further action should be taken against the student. Helena Police Department leaders say they are also aware of the post and have spoken to the student. They say they do not believe there is any threat to the school or students. They will refer the incident to the county attorney's office for any possible charges. Copps says whatever the result of the investigation, the school district is grateful that people reported the incident.
We appreciate the fact that these matters are brought forward so that we can properly investigate them to make sure that our student population is as safe as we can possibly make it.
Jonathan Ambirian, MTN News, Helena.
Now, Copps also said the district sent an email to Capitol High parents informing them about the incident. He also said administrators spoke to students about the issue as well.
Shifting gears just a bit, the Montana Department of Labor is pushing a program that is attempting to get more intern training in the healthcare industry here in the Treasure State. Interns in the apprentice program started training yesterday at Liberty Place in Whitehall, which is a service that works with people who have traumatic brain injuries to help them live independent lives. The apprenticeship program is important because Montana lacks people with these types of specialized skills.
Montana needs to add about 2,000 healthcare employees a year. Just to keep up, and so we had to find new ways to hire and train and retain healthcare employees. So that is one reason why the Department of Labor is focusing on healthcare apprenticeships.
Now, since the program started about 4 years ago, Montana has about 190 apprentices working in healthcare here in the Treasure State. Also, Montana Governor Steve Bullock's administration is going ahead with $37 million in budget cuts to medical services for the poor, including dentures and other dental work now available to thousands of Montanans. MTN's Mike Dennison has more.
3 weeks ago, at a public hearing in Helena, scores of healthcare providers and advocates for the poor urged the Bullock administration not to make a series of cuts to Medicaid-funded services. But this week, the administration said it's implementing most of the proposed cuts, including nearly $10 million that pay for dentures, crowns, and other dental services for as many as 150,000 low-income adults in Montana. David Hemian of the Montana Dental Association says these are vital services that Montana has funded for years.
Dentures are essential for nutrition, especially for people in nursing homes. They don't have, a lot of options without dentures to maintain their nutrition. They affect employability. People who are poor, or they're starting out on a kind of an entry-level job and they have no teeth, are going to have a much harder time being employed.
Other cuts taking effect include Medicaid payments to a broad swath of health care and treatment services for the poor and disabled. The Bullock administration says it has little choice in the matter. It notes that Republican lawmakers put $75 million of overall budget cuts into law during last November's special session to address the state's expected revenue shortfall, and that GOP legislators refused to consider tax increases that could prevent some of the cuts. But Hemian and others question why the administration chose the cuts it did, and whether a bounce in state revenue last month could mean at least some of the cuts can be avoided.
If they have additional money, there's no reason to make these cuts.
The Bullock administration says it may consider other options on the dental cuts, but isn't talking about any broader plans to alleviate most of the cuts. Hemian says he's hopeful that some of the dental services on the chopping block can survive.
It's just not fair to look at the budget and say, well, we can make these cuts. It really doesn't impact anyone that greatly. We can do better as a state than looking at disabled and elderly people and say they can go without these services.
Mike Dennison, MTN News, Helena.
Mike tells us the cuts are scheduled to take effect next week.
And a lab at Montana State University has developed super concrete. Researchers at MSU made concrete that can carry up to 20,000 pounds, which is 5 times stronger than regular concrete. In fact, the concrete is so strong that it's been purchased by the Montana Department of Transportation and incorporated into some bridges being built in the state. The downside is the concrete that before the MSU engineers took over was very expensive to make. Now, after experimenting, the engineers found a way to make the product a little bit more cost-effective by using materials found within the state. Now, cities like Kalispell are looking to help MSU make the concrete in larger quantities for numerous construction projects. And according to the Peace Corps, more Montana State students are volunteering with the agency. MSU ranked number 16 among medium schools in 2018. Montana has been in the top 5 volunteer-producing states per capita in the last 5 years. In the last year, university ranked 21st. 487 alumni have served in Peace Corps, and there's currently 18 alumni volunteering for the organization. This is all the way across the globe. Now, Peace Corps ranks its top volunteer-producing colleges and universities annually according to the size of student body. Pretty interesting fact there.
Almost did that myself years ago.
I almost did too. But
almost did. Had all the paperwork filled out.
Decided to wake up at 3 in the morning instead.
I decided to go work for a logging company.
There you go.
Peace Corps would have been a better gig. Trust me that. Yeah.
It is time for a quick break. Here's a little sneak peek at what's coming up on Montana this morning.
It's the gold medal game for women's hockey most fans were hoping for. I'm Dana Jacobson. Coming up, would the U.S. or Canada make history?
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, Dr. David Eggis in Studio 57 with how artificial intelligence can help diagnose and treat patients suffering from breast cancer, pneumonia, and heart disease. And from moisturizer to cosmetics, we find out why men in South Korea are spending more on beauty products than any other country. We'll see you 7 o'clock straight out.